Nice to have everybody here. Thank you, OMF. I'm Sonny Samra. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at Cleverciti, as you can kind of tell. I'm thrilled to announce this next panel, From Paper to Pilot, the Digital Transformation of Public Space. This is something that I deeply care about and is at the core of Cleverciti. We really focus on this shifting from a paper kind of manual process to a digital automated, fully focused in the key future there. Cleverciti focuses on digitizing the curb, and by capturing the curb activity and turning every parking space into a digital opportunity. And obviously with digitalization comes vast amounts of data, and with the right tools, as Andrew mentioned at the start, and the right frameworks, thank you OMF for MDS, CDS, municipalities can gain incredible insights, right, with all that data, and then make informed data-driven decisions and informed policy changes, which we kind of heard about a little bit earlier. And this change from paper to digital is, of course, more vital today than ever before, and especially in our industry. If we look around to other industries, they have fully embraced digitalization. We are one of the last ones, and we don't need to be the last ones to the party. So we need to hurry up and get going. One of the specific ways that Cleverciti is doing this with our clients is that we've launched a new digital guided solution where it's shifting from that manual walk and chalk process to more of a digital enforcement solution that allows the officers to receive immediate violations direct to their citation handhelds to allow for that digital pathway. If you actually show this quick video, this shows two things. This is the Cleverciti portal on the left here, and the passport enforcement opsman tool there. You see the client searching through the portal here, and the different spaces are all the ones that are detected digitally, with different colors meaning different status for occupied, available, or violations. The color's slightly off here, but these are actually red that they're going to right now, and this will pull up a violation that occurred in real time based on the parking rules that were set. As you see here, it's a free 2-hour session. They've stayed their welcome, and goes directly from violation in the Cleverciti portal direct to the passport opsman in real time, so that the officers can then really work together in that real-time digitalization that allows them to be more efficient and effective. And this collaboration that Andrew talked about at the start too was key with the passport, the city of Bend, and Cleverciti ourselves, because it was us that tackle these complex data integrations and the workflows, so there's a complete handshake from information flowing back and forth to the two systems, so they're not siloed. And this collaboration really exemplifies what can happen when innovative minds come together and really push the boundaries of going from a paper to a digital solution. And I think this panel is going to do a great job talking about that coming up very shortly. So together, I think if we all embrace innovation for a better urban experience, it can lead to something terrific. And I hope that everybody has a great rest of the conference. Any questions about Cleverciti, please come find myself or David Parker, CEO. And with that, I'll turn it over to Madeline.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Come on out, folks. You don't have to hide over there. So, as Sonny mentioned, we have 4 amazing speakers joining us today who are going to talk about their projects in their individual cities. Before I introduce them, I have been asked to give some introductory remarks on this topic. So, here we go. I think most people in the audience probably know quite a bit about this, but as this morning's panel is called From Paper to Pilot, the Digital Transformation of Public Space, we're going to be talking about using digital tools to manage public space, which is really what curb management is all about, right? Using our limited curb space in our cities to more efficiently and equitably balance the many people and groups that want to load, unload, walk, bike, park, dine, or do something else with that space. So like I said, we have representatives of 4 cities here tackling these challenges. All of them represent projects that were funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation's SMART grants. For those of you who don't know, the SMART grants represent the largest federal investment in smart city technologies ever made. Currently, we've funded 93 projects and counting to demonstrate innovative solutions across many modes of transportation. I'm Madeline Zhu. I'm the policy advisor for the SMART grants team, so I have the privilege of working with all of these grantees to help them first implement their pilots and then later potentially scale to larger implementations. And as Karina was just saying, we are still releasing grant agreements and still getting those things signed. So those projects are still getting underway, and we have a lot of optimism that they will continue to unfold and flourish no matter what comes. Each of the projects today that we're going to hear about are using aspects of the work of the Open Mobility Foundation, and they're employing some of these emerging data standards, like the CURB data standard, to address those issues. So I'm just going to give everyone like a one sentence, this is you, and then when we open up the floor, we'd like to start with each of you explaining more about your projects. And in particular, like Andrew said, talking about the why behind those projects. So first up, representing Miami-Dade County's project, we are joined by Carla Peralta, who's a senior associate from CityFi. Then we have from the city of San Jose, Sarah Abroff, who's our local policy lead for the Department of Transportation. From Philadelphia, we have Akshay Malik, who is the the Smart Cities Director, excuse me. And then from Boston, we have Michael Lawrence Evans, the Director of the Office of Emerging Technology. So I'm going to ask all of you guys to grab your mics and tell us each a little bit more about your projects, particularly focusing on the outcomes or the reasoning behind wanting to adopt those projects and invest in them in the first place. Why don't we start with you, Carla?
Perfect. Can you hear me? Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Well, as Madam said, my name is Carla Peralta. I'm a senior associate with CityFi, and we're supporting the Department of Transportation Public Works to implement their Smart Grant project. So, as many of the cities in the United States and counties, Miami-Dade County is facing a lot of struggle in managing its curve. We know population has grown in the last years in Miami-Dade County. We have the rising of services of delivery. So some really dense areas, such as downtown and Brickell, are really struggling to manage its curve. And this, of course, has impacted the safety of the streets. So DTPW has already done a lot of work focusing on investing in developing safety infrastructure for pedestrians and cyclists. And this has been done doing bike lanes. But when these bike lanes were done, then another problem arises: how to manage the bike lanes and to provide a safety also for access for the small businesses. So DTPW realized that without enough data to really know what is happening at the curb and also engaging all the key members and parties, it's hard to really implement effective policies to manage the curb. So the scope of the Smart Grant program is to really implement technology tools that can really tell us what is happening at the curb, improve the infrastructure that is already there, and really leverage all the work that has been already done. And a really important component in this project is community engagement. At the center of this project, the user is the key point of this, because DTPW in the county really wants to understand what are the needs of the users to make this project sustainable and really attend those needs. And we are working with UHP, Rents Here, just to implement a different community engagement methodology that really understand what are those needs. So
amazing. And hopefully we'll have time to talk more about community engagement. Sarah, tell us what's going on in San Jose.
Sure, does this works? Okay, hi. I am Sarah Abroff. I'm here representing San Jose and talking about our project there. So beginning with the why, I think Madeline and Carla both went over pretty much what the issue is, which is, there's a high demand. We have a lot of conflict at the curb. This has all come about from increase of Ubers, scooters, deliveries, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we have the why covered, but what our project focuses on is twofold. It is first, collecting curb inventory data through the use of LiDAR. And then it is second, to collect curb utilization data through the use of cameras. So it's this really simple two-pronged approach, and the inventory is really to lay the groundwork. We feel we can't do anything until we actually know what's on our curb, and people in this room will believe it, but we often don't know what's on our very own curbs. And then the second piece is to understand how that's actually being used, where there are conflicts, what's going on there, and without that knowledge, we can't address actually what's going to change and help the curb. So that's kind of our project in a nutshell.
Awesome, thanks. Akshay?
So our project is called the digitization of right-of-way, and why is sort of like a 3 steps away. I want to use Ahmed's concept of Big Bang, where did it start? And it's like 3 questions away. Back in 2018, I got a research funded project going called Transportation Data Roadmap for Philadelphia. So if you want to look up the report, it's there. Philadelphia's Transportation Data Roadmap. And there, we were trying to ask a bunch of agencies across the city, hey, what data do you have and how do you use it to solve key problems? And in that report, we found out there were 2 critical issues that could be solved in the near term using data as a problem. One was better curb management, but second was improve bus detour information for people. Because when there's a bus detour, we basically assume that people have the means to find out there was a bus detour. And when I dug into both those problems after that research report was published, I realized it's coming down to street closure permitting system problem. And I was asked to sort of sit on a panel for a new street closure permitting system that was being bought by the city. And I realized, there is, this will give us a new workflow management system, but not really solve the 2 key problems. One, what is the spatial resolution at which street closure permitting happens, which includes curb management. And that is to say, cities operate in the right-of-way, including the parking lane, at per foot, per lane, per unit of time costing. So you charge somebody for a street closure or a parking permit per lane, per foot of that lane, per unit of time, per day, per hour, etc. And our streets were being managed by IT systems that were using street centerline data, just like many other cities. So street centerline, each centerline would represent the entire length of the block, entire width of the block. And that's where this whole project started about how do we bring the resolution to our operational need? And the second was what are other systems that need to come up to a scale or come up to a technological level that can support that kind of technology. So that's sort of where we landed with the SMART grant. We actually did a smart loading zone pilot just before the SMART grant that helped us understand more about the resolution problem than other problems. But then once we applied for the SMART grant, the project is actually funding 5 different projects: upgrading signal upgrades, doing signal upgrades, doing a new CDS Plus sort of mapping for the entire right-of-way, doing a new street right-of-way software that can tether to the right-of-way assets, but translate that into policies. Like nobody wants to know when the fire hydrant was last painted. The people want to know who are trying to park, where is the no parking zone? And if the fire hydrant moves, it should be tethered to this policy right-of-way sort of platform. And then other things are like transit signal priority and the run-of-the-mill right-of-way management work.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm Michael from the city of Boston. I lead our Office of Emerging Technology. I just wanted to point out that I'm also joined here by Mia Capone. Maybe if you want to raise your hand. Yeah. So Mia is our new Director of Parking and Curbside Management at the city. The office is technically known as the Office of the Parking Clerk. But Mia's really trying to bridge the gap between policy and operations in Boston, and we'll get into this on the panel. And then I'm also joined here in LA by Anna Stoneman, who's our Senior Data Product Manager. So really trying to bring in more of a product focus, and like an internal product focus in the city. And so, in terms of the why, right now we don't have a digital record of our curb regulations, and so this is a very manual process for our transportation planners. Just to give you a little bit of context, there are 58 projects that our transportation planners are undergoing at the moment, and this is definitely ramped up in the current administration that has a very particular focus on street safety, on new mobility, on just making sure that transit is easier and more accessible. We've had various challenges with our local transportation agency, the T, if you're familiar with it, and so the city's taking a much more active role in that. And so from a transportation planner's perspective, when you're collecting those curbside regulations on a major corridor like Boylston Street in Boston, it's incredibly time consuming, and they're just going out and mapping all the signs and mapping all the regulations. And if we can even just like get a baseline layer of that's digitized, that's going to be incredibly helpful for us. I think there's also an opportunity here for doing some scenario planning. So just modeling out what might happen if we add a new loading zone or a new bike lane or that sort of thing. What's the effect going to be on parking availability? What's the effect going to be on other things like traffic? And so that's the project in a nutshell.
Yeah. So we have 4 amazing projects here that are very deep and very rich, and we could talk about any one of them for a very long time. And I know we've been asked to make up time on the schedule today. So we have a lot of topics we want to talk about. I'm going to ask everyone when we get to those to just try to keep your answers a little bit snappy. But we want to start by talking about the process of forming partnerships. Carlo mentioned a few of them. I know each of your projects have many partners, public sector, private sector. Obviously, we're joined by a lot of those partners here today. Talk about a little bit that process of sort of co-creating your pilots, either with partners of any kind, be they companies or otherwise. How's that been going? Have there been challenges? Are there things you would like to do differently? Questions you think we should be asking? And anyone who wants to go first can start off.
I'm happy to go.
Go, Sarah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's a pilot. Like, we knew from the beginning this is a pilot. We knew some things are not going to be going the way we want them to go. But then you get into the weeds, and then there's a snag, and it feels like, oh my goodness, everything is going the wrong way, But that's also the point of the pilot. So I think for us, it's interesting. Like, we have our technology partner, Mojo, who's here somewhere, and we have a engagement partner, Placeworks, and then we're working also within the city. Like, we're working across different groups. I'm on the planning team. This is a project we're working with the parking team on too, and there's just all these different groups taking on a huge pilot of something we've never done. There's no roadmap, and we have challenges every single day. Probably everybody's experiencing this. Yet when I take a step back in the big picture, we are doing really well. And I just feel like, one of the things that has come up is like, oh, the USDOT, they gave us all these crazy deadlines and this and that, but we've met all these crazy deadlines somehow. We're working, when we work with our technology partner, these are things that haven't been done before. And I think that it's really good to have partners that can be nimble and quick and work on different things, but then also understand that we are a government agency and we have our processes and we need approvals, and we can't always just, sometimes things are suggested and it's like, that is a no-go. This is USDOT funded, and we, at San Jose can't do that either. So I don't know, that's all to say that we kind of need to be quick on our feet, which is an interesting thing from a government perspective, because we're not always like that.
Yeah, we made those deadlines kind of crazy on purpose to try to create that environment. So I'm glad to hear it's working.
Some of those submissions were on Friday evenings. I just want to add, I think the biggest challenge for me or our team has been thinking through this question of co-creation. And even though we've not started the pilots, we're still through the procurement, bureaucracy, almost through it. I've had experience with doing a ton of pilots before this project. And what I would want to share with folks here and other places where you're trying to do pilots is, I think product development or product management has been a theme in the private sector for a while. And it's been done in that space in a way that did not have the constraints of the government side. Governments have procured technology in the past, like from bigger vendors like the IBMs and Oracles of the world, and said, hey, big person, big team, come and build this multi-million-dollar IT infrastructure in my space. But through this project and through other pilots that I've been working on, we're trying to bend that towards saying, hey, product managers, bring us your off-the-shelf product. But we try to mitigate this idea that we're not a Spotify user or any app user that is amongst millions of app users that you have. We need a chair at the table when you're making big decisions. We want to invest in co-creating your product, improving it, but also think about, like, I actually spoke at length to our lawyers, can we own a piece of the intellectual property that we're going to help develop? And they said, no, because we're a public entity. Whatever we own, public owns, so you can't. And we've been thinking of creative ways around that by saying, hey, can we get longer licensing deals because we help make this? Can we get a format of product change management in these companies that allows cities up, like a seat at the table when things are being decided, not when they have been decided? And that has something, I'm looking forward to having the players who are now almost through the procurement partner with us and co-create in that mindset.
I can speak from Miami. I think it has been really important because, as I mentioned, I think procurement has been a real challenge at some point. So it has been really important for this project to have partners that are able to adapt, be nimble, and work with what we have in the moment to start advancing the pilot. So one example that came through is we work with automotives on the installation of the equipment, and there is not a clear process of how to get the permits to install that technology. So when we started working on that, we realized that the technology, or well, the infrastructure from downtown is not adequate to be able to install automotive equipment, but automotive has been really good at saying, okay, we can innovate and approach this another way. So I think it's helpful to say, like, yeah, we're co-creating, we are being a team and trying to find the shortest way to arrive to the same outcome.
Yeah. I know Boston's just getting started, but
yeah, I mean, we're very early on, so to a degree, we're kind of learning from all of your challenges. I think one thing that we've been having a lot of discussions on internally, I mean, this was like last week, is how much are we going to build in house, and how much are we going to go out to work with. Put out the work for vendors or university researchers, that sort of thing. So I mean, I think given the deadline, we're going to be pretty ambitious in terms of what we're trying to build in house. We're hiring a couple data scientists as we speak. They're listed. If anyone here is interested in them, let me know. What we're hearing from the outside is, it's kind of that general skepticism about government. Like, you can't write code, you can't engineer, great products and that sort of thing. And, a lot of this is TBD, but I think, we have to get everything done by February 2026. So, and I see you sort of nodding in approval there. So, so anyway, that's like a work in progress, but just a little behind the scenes look at what we're grappling with.
yeah, I think one of the things about piloting is also, as Sarah said, it's an experimentation phase. And one of the things you're learning about is what is our in-house capacity, and not just capacity, but also what is it appropriate for us to be the owners and creators of versus what does it make sense either from an ownership perspective or the data that we need or the security or privacy or whatever the considerations are, like welding those things together and blending them. I think that's a nice segue to the next thing that we wanted to talk about, which this is the panel about piloting. There's a panel in the afternoon that's about like going past the pilot, but the point of a pilot is to go on, right? To take your learnings to something else. So even as you are still in this first phase, how are you thinking about sustainability for your project? How to bake it into something that can live on? And what are you learning now that you'll carry forward if or how you go forward in whatever the implementation looks like next for you?
I can talk about some of the work that we've done or sort of placed in motion. I think one of the things that a lot of private companies miss out working with cities is people come at us about, what are the metrics that you want to see to showcase that this is successful? I think before we jump into data-driven metrics, there's a metric which we want to call switch the lights on and see if nothing burns, right? Like just try it out, and it was hard explaining to a vendor for the smart loading zone that a metric for us is that nobody's yelling at the council member. Like, you're not getting any angry calls. This is amazing. That's the best metric I can think of.
You call that public acceptance testing?
Yeah. Like, and the other thing is that the public side, and then there is an internal side. When we try and pilot these new systems, you're going to be taking away from the workflows that people have invested time and energy in learning. Those are bad systems, but somebody in some department has spent a lot of time learning how to navigate that terrible mapping app or that button that doesn't click before you click it 3 times in a certain way. It's helpful if you can have empathy for that person, that they're going to lose that time they've spent on that system, and give them the time and space to realize that and value value the efficiency you're going to bring. It's going to be a strategic change for the department and everything is great, but if that person is angry with you, like, your project is gone. Like, the person will just not invest in it like you want to, because it's not their passion project. And I think it's important to, one, I acknowledge that, and second, give them the space to sort of try it out and let them be comfortable that this is going to be a change. Like, it can't be through influence. It has to be through influence, not through authority, is what I'm saying.
I think for the Miami perspective, one thing, and I give this credit completely to Carlos Cruz, who's the project manager of the project, he has been really thinking forward how this could be sustainable and keep implemented. And one action that has been doing a lot, and also the county, is engaging all the key parties. So he's trying to meet with all the private companies that are also trying to do this and benefit from this project. I think the effort and the community engagement, just to bring the community along and see how this could be positive for them, and really say, like, this is a testing process. We're not going to maybe 100% right the first time, but we are co-creating this. So that's the approach that's been done in Miami.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about the community, and that also reminds me that for our city, it's also getting the senior leadership on board with all of this, which we were really lucky they were, and this is a priority project. We were told to apply to this, but it's still elevating it and making it top of mind for our leaders within DOT and beyond. I think that's part of the sustainability of the project. And, this takes so much resources. It's not just the $2 million from USDOT. It is, for full-time staff members. I mean, we work on other projects too, but this is a huge project resource-wise for us, and it's like, it just has to last. So as we're going through the pilot, we have to hold on. It can't just be a pilot, oh, yes, it worked, or no, it didn't. The outcome has to be sustainable things that we can take away from it. Sure, a piece didn't work, this piece didn't work, but this other thing did work. And the foundation is what we're laying so that we can figure out how to make it work and how we can get funding for other parts of it. And already at this point, we know so much about, if we apply to this other grant, if we get funding from here, we can apply for this little piece of it, even if it's not the whole thing. And I think the pilot in general has just given us kind of opened our eyes to how we move forward with this. Even for when this pilot phase ends, we're further along in the process to making this real.
I guess I'll just, in terms of sustainability, there's just kind of a simple question around, are we building things that our residents need, that our planners need, that our asset managers need? That's why I think, Anna's role is as our project manager is so important here. That's not like the most traditional role to have in government. And so, if you looked at our innovation technology team in Boston like a decade ago, there was no one who was doing product. It was, there were certainly folks who were doing project management. And there is a nuance between, product and product management and project management. And, Anna's been doing a really great job, just really focusing on the user needs and infusing that into into the larger project. And, it's just that, if we're able to, show value to the mayor, to show value to leadership, then, I'm pretty confident, 3 to 5 years out, we're going to be able to, sustain funding, for it. Just make sure we have the folks on hand to, maintain the system and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's great to hear. Go
Can I
ahead.
quickly add, I forgot about this. I think one thing that definitely adds to the sustainability side is the collaborative approach that USDOT did for this grant. I don't know if other grants have had that, but this was immensely helpful to have cities at arm's length reach. Hey, do you know how this works? And them coming back really quickly or on a weekend call like, hey, did you try this? And that across 9-10 cities is immensely helpful and will make sure something out of this survives even if everybody gives up. So
I thought of that with the last question too, and like I know we're here to it's OMF, it's an OMF collaborative, but it has been amazing. I don't even know how we would navigate this project without the other cities. Everything we've learned from the very beginning of the application, procurement, implementation, now we're thinking further along of sustainability and policy, like having the other cities has just been absolutely invaluable to this process.
Yeah, that's amazing. Building off of a lot of the themes that came out of your responses, I want to talk about messaging and communication. So a lot of you mentioned either working with like internal stakeholders or others who are within the city, building that buy-in, or community engagement more broadly. How are you? We've been talking about the whys. Andrew was talking about tying this work to climate action. How are you communicating with the partners and the stakeholders that you need to bring in? What messages are landing? Because as Karina alluded to and Francie earlier, it's not that easy to explain to someone like what curb management or MDS or any of that stuff is just like on face.
You can go. So I didn't mention this up front, but me and Chris Shelley from my team, we're in the IT department. We're not in the transportation department. We're the computer people, if you run out of your cable. The transportation team, there's Mike Carroll who's not able to make it to this conference, who sits on the board for OMF, and there are people in the streets department who are partners who we are sort of partnering with or collaborating with to make this happen. For a long time, it was just me and Mike Carroll talking about this weird API business everybody keeps talking about. Nobody else. It wasn't institutionalized for a good time. And I think I want to give credit to Angela and others at OMF for, putting things, especially in the CDS space, in like 12th grader or 8th grader reading level. What does API mean again? And they've done great webinars. And I remember we had Kelly Ruler show up in Philly for a discussion with our partners to say, you're not crazy. These computer people are not crazy. They're trying to help you. So work with them. And I'm an academic, and like Kelly was amazing about talking about how this is being used in other cities. I think that global view, even though we talk and value the collaboration a lot, it's still sort of a bubble. And institutionalizing things requires people from outside that bubble to step in and sort of work with us or hear us or, I don't know, we throw something at them and say, hey, please. So I have another person from our Department of Transportation here, Anna Kelly, somewhere here. We're trying to involve people more and more through different aspects of like calling either partners from different cities or engaging them through the webinar series. But it needs to happen way more, way faster than we're doing it. So
I can talk about communication during engagement. What I think is very interesting is early on we had a poster that said, I think our project is called Smart Curbs to kind of mirror the USDOT's, like this is the SMART grant. And instantly people are just like, oh, this isn't gonna be like, what is smart curb? Like, this is annoying, another layer of technology. They were so frustrated by this. And then we're like, oh no, this is just the name. We just wanna know like, what issues do you have at the curb? Like what's going on? And that was interesting that, yes, internally we're using technology to solve these problems, but the public, that doesn't matter to the public. We just wanna know from them, how things are going, and as soon as we're talking about the curbs, they actually get it and have so much to share, but it was definitely a learning process for us that, okay, this is exciting technology for the city. The public doesn't appeal to them.
And I can tell you one finding that we have had in Miami is via community engagement, the project scope has shifted and has pivoted. We have some findings or original hypotheses of who will be the key users or beneficiaries of the pilot were not really the ones that we should focus. So we learned how to pivot that, and another thing that it's coming is we're developing a communications campaign to really explain with the community using an exit methodology what the technology will do, how it will improve, and really trying to align all the outcomes and try to be really transparent of what is really the outcome of the pilot and what we're hoping to achieve.
I guess, since we're so early on, most of the communication has been internal. I'll just sort of say a couple things here, though, that, our project kind of dovetails with some other, efforts, in our streets cabinet. So, lately, throughout this year, for example, I've been working a lot on signal retiming efforts, reducing traffic, that sort of thing. And so we've been working with Google on that. We've been working, getting some great data from INRIX as well. And in general, especially for folks on our operations team, I've been trying to sort of make them more comfortable with data. And especially these newer data sources that they were maybe not familiar with beforehand. Just building up the trust there, that kind of stuff. I think the second thing I wanted to know is introduced Mia Capone, who's our new director of parking. She's been just started a new I think curbside management coordination working group meeting. Again, it's like, okay, so were you all doing that beforehand? I mean, we were probably in some ways, but I think the conversations were probably a little bit, not like the most cohesive. And Mia's doing, a really great job making that, into a more cohesive call. So I think people are a lot more aligned now, on what the vision is going forward on it.
Yeah, I will just share, we had a new communications and media relations person join our larger department, of which SMART is one component. And he told me that curb management was the least sexy concept he had ever heard of. It just has two words together, and forbade us from ever using it with the media. So we too have been told to come up with something better. If anyone has good ideas, let me know. But I know we only have a few minutes left. I want to ask each of you, this is a two-part question. You can pick whichever one you want to answer. One part is, final thoughts, if there's other things about your project you want to share, other things that have come up for you, what is something, having either been in the pilot, starting the pilot, having at least gone through the process of working with us, that you would like to share with the rest of the audience, especially to other cities who might be trying to follow in your footsteps or thinking about tackling some of these problems or challenges or looking at some of these partnerships or technologies? Like, what would you kind of share with them as a takeaway?
Have
Go
two.
Carla, yeah.
So I think the first one is I want to underline community engagement is really important, because I think that has really helped us to narrow down where we should focus on the scope of project, and hopefully we can build momentum with the first piece of the implementation, then build more partnerships and accomplish a long-term sustainability of the project. The second one, I know we all have been facing some procurement hurdles, let's say. So I think it's really important to try to bring the procurement staff along the project, show them why it's important, and try to involve them in the project as much as possible to try to make things as seamless as possible.
Yeah, how much time we have? I can rant about procurement for...
According to Anna, 4 minutes.
Yeah, procurement is terrible. Second that. I think first, just the word usage. I felt, so my title is Smart Cities Director, and I felt like whenever we attach smart to something, curbs or anything, it kind of alienates people. It says everybody else is stupid. We're doing the smart stuff. And we've tried to stay away from calling things smart, and like it's sometimes working, sometimes hard. I think the biggest learning that we've had outside of procurement processes, which was painful, is that I think we want people to embrace the technology and be at the table early on. It is very hard to bring them on later and say, here, use this, and we made this up for you. And I think the institutional knowledge or insight that you can get by bringing them on is invaluable. Like, you want to learn their terrible workflows so that you can solve for them. If you solve for a smart curb, it'll be a bad idea to bring it to them. But if you start you start with their terrible workflow and work towards, money is money, you'll get the money and you'll get the consultant or technology. But if you start from their bad workflow, it helps.
So, we're sort of freewheeling. Okay. So I think the one thing that I am really excited about that me and Anna and I were kind of talking about earlier this morning is the opportunity for, modeling what the impact might be on, on the curb and, on traffic, other things. One thing I was thinking about, and please give me feedback if this is the worst idea in the world, but is to do this in like a fun and accessible way. Has anyone here used a tool called Street Mix? Maybe, okay, hi Nat. So it's just a really fun urban design website where you can, sort of just design a street with bike lanes or bus lanes or whatever, and the graphics are really beautiful. What if we did something similar for curb regulations, where we could bring that into a community meeting? People could play around with it, see what the impact might be. Just a little bit of a different take on sort of the traditional dashboard view of it. And so I think that's a thing that might be like a stretch goal for us, and try something like that.
Yeah. Sarah.
I would say this might be obvious for people who are running pilots, and I have run pilots before, but I think is like embrace all the issues. Even on days where it feels like it's not going right, you are moving forward, and we're learning a lot. And it often takes really taking a step back, explaining the project to somebody who doesn't know it or something, to understand how far we've come. So I think, this whole project has been an absolute whirlwind. I can't believe we've met these deadlines. I can't believe we've done the things we've done, and we've done them. And it's, when I take a step back, it's going really well, despite the day-to-day feeling really challenging. So that's just my recommendation for running these.
Well, thank you all so much. We've got engage with people, help solve their actual problems, speak to them and show them things in a way that will actually help them understand, and maintain your perspective throughout the entire process. I think these are all great lessons to take away. Thank you all so much, and thank you for joining us.